It began on a stretch of highway that cut through the emptiest part of Maryland, Route 228, known locally as the Spine Road. Truckers avoided it after midnight. Locals called it cursed, but the police called it just another bad stretch of asphalt. That changed on October 9th, 1997, when dispatch received a call that would rewrite the state's criminal history. At 2:47 a.m., a state trooper named Eric Waller was running a routine patrol when he saw headlights swerving near Mason's Bridge, a two-lane overpass where fog pooled thick as smoke. He slowed, expecting a drunk driver. Instead, he found a Chevy Silverado idling in the middle of the bridge. Driver's door open, engine still running, radio humming white noise. The dashboard clock had stopped at 2:41. Waller approached cautiously, flashlight in hand. The road was slick with mist, the silence broken only by the ticking of cooling metal. Then he noticed the tire tracks. They ran straight off the bridge. Two perfect parallel impressions that seemed to continue midair for nearly 12 feet before disappearing into the fog below. No skid marks, no guardrail damage, no crash site, and no driver. The registration came back to Daniel Harper, a 36-year-old contractor from Waldorf. He'd left a friend's house 2 hours earlier after watching a football game. His phone was found on the passenger seat, flashlight app still open. His wallet was intact, keys still in the ignition, but Daniel was gone. By sunrise, search crews were combing the riverbank. Divers found nothing. Helicopters scanned the surrounding fields. Dogs lost the scent halfway across the bridge. The only clue left behind was the trail of mud that ended where gravity should have taken over, and yet, there was nothing below. News outlets picked up the story by morning, calling it the vanishing driver case. Locals had another name, the Highway Phantom. Witnesses began to come forward. A trucker claimed he'd seen a shadow figure crossing the lanes moments before the Silverado appeared. A woman driving home from a night shift swore she saw taillights suspended in midair, like a car still driving an invisible road. For investigators, it was a nightmare, a case without a body, a suspect, or a motive. But for the community, it was something deeper, proof that the legends about Route 228 weren't just stories whispered over beers and bonfires. And when another car vanished on that same bridge exactly 1 year later, the state police stopped calling it a coincidence. They started calling it a pattern. By the time the second car vanished, Route 228 was no longer just another country road. It had become a crime scene stretching for 5 miles. The second incident occurred on October 9th, 1998, exactly 1 year to the day after Daniel Harper's disappearance. This time, it was a young couple, Ethan and Rachel Lowe, both 24, newly married, returning from a late dinner in Waldorf. Their Honda Accord was found on the same bridge, empty, lights flickering, engine still warm. Again, no bodies, no struggle, no damage. And once again, the tire tracks told an impossible story. They started on asphalt and ended abruptly over open air. Investigators called it déjà vu, locals called it a curse. The case now fell under the jurisdiction of Detective Laura Bishop, a veteran investigator with the Maryland State Police known for her precision and skepticism. She didn't believe in curses. She believed in evidence. But even she had to admit, this case didn't behave like any she'd ever seen. Within days, Route 228 was shut down. Drone footage, sonar mapping, and 3D reconstruction of Mason's Bridge yielded no structural flaws. No hidden drop, no sinkhole, but something else caught Bishop's attention. A faint, chemical residue embedded in the bridge's surface. It shimmered under UV light, not oil, not paint. The lab report identified it as a polymer compound used in aviation materials. The same compound had been detected, though unnoticed, in the first disappearance. That was the first connection. The second came from a gas station camera 5 miles away. The footage showed Ethan and Rachel's car passing through at 1:52 a.m. 10 seconds later, a faint white blur followed. Not a car, not a reflection, just a streak of light gliding soundlessly through the frame. Bishop enhanced the footage. The shape didn't match the headlights. It was circular. Some officers joked about UFOs. Others whispered about the highway phantom. But Bishop didn't laugh. She drove out to the bridge herself, parked her cruiser, and stood there alone in the fog. The air was cold enough to sting her lungs. For a moment, she thought she heard something. A faint hum, like electricity crawling through the air. When she stepped forward, her boot hit a patch of the same polymer residue. It stuck to the sole like glue. She scraped it off with her penknife and pocketed the sample. Later that night, she logged the evidence under the tag, Case November 9th, 98/Mason's Bridge residue. It would take another year before she'd realize that compound didn't just come from an aircraft. It came from something that shouldn't have existed on Earth at all. And the bridge? It wasn't the crime scene. It was the gateway. By the spring of 1999, Mason's Bridge had become Maryland's most heavily surveilled stretch of asphalt. 24-hour patrols, infrared cameras, motion sensors. Every possible explanation, mechanical failure, human foul play, optical illusion, had been tested and ruled out. Still, the disappearances continued to defy logic. Detective Laura Bishop pushed for a complete electromagnetic survey. She brought in scientists from the University of Maryland, hoping data could silence the myths. But instead, the readings made the myths stronger. At exactly 2:41 a.m., the same time the previous vanishings had occurred, every sensor spiked. Electromagnetic levels doubled. The air temperature dropped by 10 degrees. And all at once, every camera feed froze. When the images returned 15 seconds later, one of the officers, Corporal Vince Carver, was gone. His radio was still transmitting static. His patrol car engine was still running. And, like before, his tire tracks ended mid-air. They found his flashlight lying in the center of the bridge, still on. The lens had cracked inward, as though crushed by invisible pressure. Bishop reviewed the frozen footage frame by frame. At the exact second the cameras glitched, the feed showed a ripple in the fog, a distortion like heat rising off pavement. Then a shadow, not human, not an animal. The shape flickered for a millisecond before vanishing completely. The university team called it a temporal interference event. Locals called it a haunting. For Bishop, it was personal now. Vince Carver had been her partner for 6 years. He wasn't reckless. He wasn't superstitious. He'd walked out onto that bridge because the motion sensors detected movement, and he'd never walked back. The search that followed was exhaustive. Helicopters with thermal imaging swept the area for miles. No sign of Carver. No body. No heat signature. But 2 days later, his voice came through dispatch. At 3:08 a.m., a transmission broke the quiet. A faint whisper under heavy static. "Laura, don't look for me." The signal traced back to Carver's patrol car, still impounded at the station lot. The engine hadn't run in 48 hours. No one had touched the radio. Bishop ordered a full forensic sweep of the vehicle. Inside, the team found one thing that didn't belong. A smudge of the same polymer compound, glowing faintly under UV light across the steering wheel. It wasn't residue this time. It was a fingerprint, but the ridge pattern didn't match any human file in federal databases. Whatever was taking people from Mason's Bridge, it wasn't just erasing them, it was learning from them. By early 2000, Route 228 was no longer under the Maryland State Police. It now belonged to the Department of Homeland Security. The official reason was infrastructure security. The real reason was the Carver incident. 3 disappearances could be explained away as bad luck. 4, including a trained officer with federal clearance, meant something far beyond the ordinary. Homeland agents arrived in unmarked SUVs, their badges unspoken but heavy with authority. On the first night, they sealed off the bridge with blackout tents. Locals were told it was an environmental hazard, but what they were really measuring was energy. Detective Laura Bishop was ordered to step back. Instead, she went deeper. Through a contact in Annapolis, she secured access to internal DHS memos. The documents were brief but chilling. Site shows sustained electromagnetic anomalies. Organic particulates recovered, not of terrestrial classification. Subject C, Carver voice signature recorded 72 hours post-disappearance. That final line stopped her cold. Bishop drove back to the bridge in the middle of the night, badge on the dash, defying federal order. The highway was empty except for a cluster of equipment. Black, box-like, humming faintly. Two men in radiation suits were collecting samples of the polymer residue she'd first discovered a year earlier. When she asked what they were doing, one agent simply said, "You shouldn't be here, detective. This isn't a crime scene anymore." But the air around her told a different story. It shimmered, like heat haze over asphalt. Even in the cold February wind, she reached out a hand. For a second, the air resisted her, as if something solid floated just inches in front of her palm. Then nothing. That night, she wrote in her report, "There is a membrane here, a barrier, something that doesn't behave like air or light. It responds." Within days, Homeland trucks hauled away every piece of debris, even the bridge's railings. They poured new concrete and declared the site structurally unsound. But for those who lived nearby, the hauntings only intensified. Truckers heard CB chatter in Carver's voice. A fisherman reported headlights moving under the river, deep below the surface. One family swore they saw the missing couple, Ethan and Rachel Lowe, standing at the roadside, holding hands, their faces pale as moonlight. Homeland agents dismissed the sightings as hysteria, but Bishop knew hysteria didn't leave tire tracks, especially not the ones found a week later, pressed into solid rock, 20 miles from Mason's Bridge. Same make, same model, Daniel Harper's Chevy Silverado. It was a park ranger who first saw it. At sunrise on March 3, 2000, while surveying an abandoned quarry 20 miles east of Mason's Bridge, Ranger Cole Atwood noticed something gleaming under a sheer wall of slate. He thought it was scrap metal until he brushed away the dust. Embedded in the rock face, as if grown there, was the front end of a Chevrolet Silverado. Not crushed, not rusted, preserved. The metal blended seamlessly with the stone. The transition so smooth it looked molecular, as if the truck had been half absorbed by the rock itself. Cole called it in. By noon, the site was crawling with DHS agents and geological experts. The area was fenced off within the hour, and at the center of it all stood Detective Laura Bishop, now acting unofficially. She had recognized the license plate before anyone else did. Maryland 3 FJ 2197, Daniel Harper's truck. The same man who had vanished 3 years earlier on Mason's Bridge. The vehicle's interior was intact. Coffee cup still in the holder, wallet in the console, seat belt fastened. But Daniel Harper wasn't there. The dashboard clock read 2:41 a.m. At the same time, every other disappearance had occurred. Scientists from DHS tried to extract the vehicle, but every drill shattered. The rock wasn't ordinary slate. Tests revealed its composition had been altered. Atoms rearranged in ways that didn't match any natural or synthetic process known on Earth. When they scanned it with ground-penetrating radar, they detected something stranger still. A faint electrical signal pulsing inside the rock. A rhythm, a heartbeat. That night, the lead DHS geologist, Dr. Naomi Li, told Bishop privately, "This isn't fusion or compression. It's a translation. Whatever happened to the truck? It was phased between states of matter. Half here, half somewhere else." Bishop stared at her. "Somewhere else?" Dr. Li nodded slowly. "Think of it like this. If space had seams, this truck fell between them." Over the next few days, the signal inside the stone grew stronger, a low, constant hum. Electronic equipment malfunctioned near it. Several agents reported nosebleeds and disorientation. One collapsed after claiming he could hear voices inside the rock. By day 6, the hum stopped. When they rescanned the formation, the truck was gone. All that remained was a perfect hollow cavity in the shape of the Silverado. Smooth edges, no debris. DHS sealed the quarry under a federal non-disclosure order. Locals were told it was contaminated by asbestos, but Bishop kept a sample of the stone. Under her microscope, she saw something that made her blood run cold. A faint outline of tread marks, moving slowly and possibly across the mineral surface. not fossilized, active. The entrance to Haven Point wasn't on any map. It sat hidden behind a rusted water treatment plant on the outskirts of Harford County, camouflaged by decades of vines and disuse. To anyone else, it looked like a forgotten relic of the Cold War. A concrete bunker with a collapsed roof and no history worth remembering. But Detective Laura Bishop and Dr. Naomi Li weren't just anyone. The coordinates Li had calculated from the frequency decay led directly to that overgrown ruin. And what they found inside would change everything they thought they knew about the highway phantom. The outer corridor was choked with dust, dead wiring, and rotted signage that read property of U.S. Defense Research Division, 1971. Their flashlights cut through the dark, beams glinting off corroded nameplates and shattered consoles. Then a sound, a faint hum, the same pulse they'd heard from the quarry stone. Only now it was louder, rhythmic, alive. They followed it deeper underground. At the end of a long tunnel was a steel blast door, marked with black stencil letters. Project Archway, Clearance Level 7. Lee brushed away grime to reveal a keypad. It was dead, but the lock mechanism wasn't. Using a portable power pack, she rerouted current into the panel. The lights flickered green. The door slid open. Inside, they found a cylindrical chamber stretching 3 stories high, walls lined with copper coils and cracked glass conduits. In the center stood a massive ring structure, 30 feet in diameter. Its frame twisted and scorched, yet intact. Around its base were scattered folders, reels of magnetic tape, and a metal plaque half buried in debris. Archway Initiative Spatial Resonance Gate Prototype. Operational period, 1973 to 1974. Lee whispered, "It's a bridge." Bishop frowned. "Between what?" Lee crouched by the console, flipping open one of the logs. The pages were brittle, but the words were legible. Initial field test yielded 3.2 seconds of dimensional continuity. Organic matter failed to reconstitute fully upon return. Recommend cessation until anomalies stabilize. At the bottom of the page, a handwritten note. Containment breach, February 14th, 74. Personnel missing 3-inch. The hum intensified. Lights on the ring flickered faintly, despite being unpowered. Bishop backed away. "It's still active." Lee's hands shook as she switched on her recorder. "No, it's resonating. Whatever this thing did back then, it's still doing it." She placed the same stone fragment from the quarry near the base. The hum shifted pitch immediately. The ring emitted a burst of light, brief but blinding. And for a fraction of a second, Bishop saw something through the opening. A road, asphalt cracked, headlights floating in the mist. Then darkness. The hum stopped. The chamber went silent. Bishop turned to Lee, her voice barely a whisper. "Naomi." That wasn't a reflection. Lee swallowed hard. "I know. That was Route 228. When Detective Bishop and Dr. Li emerged from the bunker, dawn had not yet broken. But something was wrong. The air above Mason's bridge shimmered, not like heat, but like static. Every sound felt muffled, as though wrapped in thick glass. Even the crickets had gone silent. Bishop glanced back toward the hatch. It was already sealing itself, the rusted blast door grinding shut with a final groan, as if the earth were reclaiming it. Lee was shaking. "We shouldn't have activated it," she whispered. "That field wasn't stable. You saw the energy feedback." Bishop didn't respond. Her flashlight flickered once, then went out completely. The hum from the quarry stone was gone now, replaced by something deeper, slower, like a heartbeat coming from beneath the asphalt. They reached Bishop's car. Its dashboard clock blinked erratically. 3:41, 2:14, 12 o'clock, looping endlessly. When the headlights turned on, the beam illuminated something impossible. Fresh tire tracks across the bridge, perfectly parallel, heading in one direction toward them. Lee froze. That can't be. No one's driven this road in years. The tracks gleamed as if newly pressed, moisture still glistening on the asphalt. Then, from across the span, fog began to gather. At first, it looked ordinary, just river mist. But as it thickened, Bishop saw faint shapes in it. headlights moving slowly, deliberately. Only there was no sound, no engine. A pair of beams stopped in the middle of the bridge, hovering in place. Then came the smell, burnt oil and ozone. The hum returned, rising in frequency until both women clutched their ears. "Laura," Li whispered, "it's opening again." The bridge groaned under their feet. Concrete trembled, the metal guardrails rattling like struck piano strings. Bishop pulled Li toward the car. The headlights advanced another 10 feet, but they weren't connected to any vehicle. They floated midair, the glow pulsing like a heartbeat. Suddenly, a burst of static filled the air. Radios crackled to life inside the car, though they were turned off. Voices whispered, distorted, layered, hundreds at once. "Bridge open. Come back." Left behind. The tire tracks began to smoke, edges curling upward like they were burning from underneath. Li's eyes widened in horror. It's not just residual energy, it's reactive. It remembers motion. The lights surged forward, passing directly through the car. Every window shattered outward. When Bishop looked up, they were gone. Only the smell remained, and the tracks, now glowing faintly red, leading back toward the direction of Haven Point. Li fell to her knees, gasping. "It followed us," she said. "Whatever came through, it's not bound to the bridge anymore." Bishop's radio clicked once, though it had no power. A man's voice whispered, faint but unmistakable, "You opened the door." By morning, Mason's bridge was gone again. Not destroyed, simply missing. When Detective Bishop returned with a full task force at sunrise, the road ended in open air, a clean drop into the ravine where the bridge should have been. GPS still registered the route as intact. Drones flew straight through the coordinates, their cameras distorting midair like reality was misaligned by half a second. Dr. Naomi Li stood silently at the edge, holding the quarry stone, pulsed faintly, matching her heartbeat. "The field's expanding," she whispered. The archway didn't just open a passage, it opened a pattern. Within hours, reports began to pour in. A trucker near Route 228 swerved off the highway after seeing glowing tire tracks cutting across the road, but there had been no cars for miles. In a diner 5 miles north, security footage showed headlights flashing across the parking lot at 2:17 a.m., reflected in puddles, but with no visible source. And at 4:02 a.m., a state trooper responding to a call from the quarry transmitted his final words over the radio. "Something's moving under the asphalt." Then silence. Bishop and Li analyzed the tire track residue under ultraviolet light. The results were impossible. Traces of carbon and ferrite, fused at molecular levels higher than any known combustion temperature. It wasn't rubber. It was reconstituted material, like something had been disassembled and rebuilt by energy far beyond any human technology. Bishop rubbed her temples. "You're saying the tracks aren't left by a car. They are their car." Li nodded grimly. Echoes of matter caught in the archway's resonance field. Each track is a temporal imprint, a moment of motion trapped in repeating space. As she spoke, the hum returned. Not from the stone this time, but from beneath their feet. The road itself vibrated. Bishop knelt, pressing her palm to the asphalt. It was warm. Then her phone buzzed with a new message from an unknown number. Only one image, a photo of the bridge, whole again. And standing beside it, clear as daylight, was a figure in a state trooper's uniform, the same officer who had vanished hours earlier. His face was blurred, mid-motion, as if caught between frames. The caption beneath the photo read, "Not gone, not yet." Li grabbed Bishop's arm. "It's communicating, through residual signals. The field's leaking information from the other side." Bishop stared at the image, cold realization washing over her. Then the highway phantom, "It's not a ghost." Li looked up slowly. "No, it's the past, trying to reinsert itself." They both turned toward the empty ravine. For a fleeting second, just above the drop, headlights flickered in midair, glowing softly before fading like dying stars. The highway wanted to come back, and it wasn't coming alone. The night the rift reopened, the sky above Route 228 turned the color of rust. A storm had been forecast, But this wasn't weather. It was geometry breaking. Every compass in Harford County spun wild. Streetlights flickered out in sequence, one by one, as if bowing to an unseen pulse. And beneath that pulse came the hum again. Low, steady, deliberate. Detective Laura Bishop stood at the base of the ravine with Dr. Naomi Li, watching something rise where the missing bridge had been. It started as light, thin, shimmering strands of white cutting through the fog. Then came the road, rebuilding itself piece by piece, like film rewinding in slow motion. Asphalt, guardrails, street signs, everything is reforming from dust and static. But it wasn't coming back the way it left. The angles were wrong, the curvature warped, and through the seams, faces appeared, blurred silhouettes of drivers, passengers, and pedestrians who had vanished over the years. Lee whispered, "It's looping through temporal data, reconstructing fragments of every crossing event since 1974. The air crackled. A radio on Bishop's belt crackled to life. Unit 19, returning to post. The voice was familiar. It was the missing state trooper. Bishop looked up just as a figure in uniform stepped out from the reconstructed bridge. His movements were stiff, puppet-like, as though gravity were optional. His boots left glowing tire impressions on the asphalt. She raised her flashlight. "Officer Grant? It's Bishop. You're safe. Stay where you are." He stopped 10 feet away, eyes vacant. His radio sputtered again. "Bridge, open. Can't close it, help us." Then his face began to distort. Skin flickered like a corrupted video feed. His mouth opened, but the words that came weren't human. "It remembers the way home." The hum spiked into a scream. Lee stumbled backward as the entire bridge erupted in light. Cars, old, modern, even rusted relics from the 70s, appeared and vanished, cycling through existence like slides in a projector. Each one bore the same license number, 12A74. Lee shouted over the noise. That was the last vehicle before the archway collapsed. The system's using it as an anchor. Bishop's mind raced. Then, if we break the pattern. Before she could finish, the light imploded. A shockwave of wind and debris flung them both to the ground. When Bishop opened her eyes, the bridge was gone again. The ravine was empty. Only one thing remained on the dirt. A set of tire tracks, smoking faintly in the dark. Lee coughed, dazed. "Did we stop it?" Bishop shook her head slowly. "No, we just witnessed it reboot." From the shadows behind them, a lone headlight flickered on, just one. And then a voice, calm and mechanical, came through the car's shattered radio. "Next retrieval scheduled. Route 228. The cycle continues." The next morning, the sky above Route 228 was calm again. Too calm. Detective Laura Bishop and Dr. Naomi Li sat in an unmarked SUV overlooking the ravine, both trying to comprehend what they had just seen the night before. The readings on Li's tablet refused to stabilize. The energy spikes from the bridge site weren't fading. They were multiplying, scattering in all directions like radio waves bouncing off invisible walls. "Every 14 hours, it pulses again," Li muttered. "It's not random. It's heartbeat regularity, like something alive." Bishop frowned. "Alive how?" Li turned the screen toward her. "It's responding to itself. The field replays the same data loop over and over, each time more stable than before. It's learning." Before Bishop could answer, a black van pulled up behind them. No markings. 4 men stepped out, dark suits, DHS badges that glinted like threats. The leader, a man named Director Harlan Voss, approached with a flat smile. "Detective Bishop, Dr. Li, you've both seen more than your clearances allow." Bishop crossed her arms. "You knew about Haven Point." Voss didn't deny it. Project Archway was decommissioned in '74 after a containment failure. "You were never supposed to find it." Li shot back. "Containment failure? You trapped something in there." Voss's smile faded. "Not something. Someone." He motioned toward one of the agents, who handed Bishop a sealed file stamped eyes only. Inside was a single photograph, grainy, black and white, of a man in a lab lab coat standing beside the archway ring. The nameplate read, Dr. Malcolm Rayner, lead engineer. Bishop looked up. He was the one who built it? Voss nodded. He was the one who tested it. Li's eyes widened. He went through, voluntarily, Voss said, to prove stability. But the machine didn't transport him. It fragmented his neural pattern, embedded it into the spatial resonance field. His mind became part of the system. Bishop's voice dropped to a whisper. So the highway phantom, Voss finished the thought, is what's left of Dr. Rayner, his consciousness, looping through every connected roadway, trying to reassemble itself. Li stared in horror. That means every time the bridge reforms, he's reliving the last moment before he died. Voss's tone hardened. That's why we sealed Haven Point. The field has no physical body, only energy. If it stabilizes, it could spread through the entire highway network. Every connected road becomes an extension, an open gate. He leaned closer. You didn't stop it last night. You woke it. The hum returned then, faint but unmistakable. It came not from the ravine, but from their own car radio. Static formed words. Bridge open, home incomplete. Li whispered, he's reaching for us. Bishop closed the file slowly. Then maybe we can reach him back. By midnight, the Department of Homeland Security had resealed Route 228. Floodlights cut through the mist, illuminating soldiers, engineers, and black-suited officials swarming over the ravine like ants on a wound. But Detective Laura Bishop and Dr. Naomi Li weren't leaving, because beneath the noise and the radio chatter, the hum had returned. Deeper now, steady as a pulse. And within it, a voice whispered their names. Laura, Naomi. Li's instruments went haywire. He's broadcasting again, the neural patterns stabilizing. If it reaches critical frequency, Bishop finished quietly, the whole network goes live. Dr. Li pulled open a hardened laptop, connecting it to a signal interceptor tied into the DHS array. The screen filled with cascading numbers, the archway resonance code. She typed furiously, if I can interface through a digital medium, maybe I can force a feedback collapse. Overload his field with his own signal. Voss's voice cut through the comms. You're out of your depth, Doctor. Step away from that console. Li ignored him. The frequency rose. Static bled into sound. Thousands of overlapping whispers merging into one voice. Help me? Help me remember. Bishop stared at the spectrogram forming on Li's screen. Hidden within the waveform, a faint outline of a human face appeared. Eyes closed, lips moving. It's him, Bishop whispered. Dr. Rayner. Li's hands trembled. He's not malicious. He's trapped. Every pulse is a reconstruction attempt. He's trying to rebuild his consciousness through the roads themselves. The ground rumbled. Floodlights flickered. Vehicles near the barricade rolled forward on their own. Engines dead. Tires screeching as if pulled by invisible gravity. Voss shouted over the comms. It's activating across the grid. Highways from Baltimore to DC are showing phantom motion. Li looked at Bishop. We have one shot. Manual override. Plug the stone fragment into the signal port. It's a stable mineral conductor. It'll anchor the collapse to one point. Bishop hesitated, then jammed the fragment into the port. Sparks flew. The screen turned white. The hum became a scream, then silence. The lights died. The wind stopped. When Bishop opened her eyes, the ravine was empty again. No bridge, no soldiers, just the quiet sound of river water moving below. Li was gone. So was Voss. Every trace of the operation had vanished. Only Bishop remained, standing beside a newly paved stretch of highway, pristine and unmarked. Her radio clicked once. Laura, home complete. She looked down. The tire tracks appeared again, just two this time, running perfectly parallel into the distance. Bishop followed them with her eyes until they disappeared into fog. In the distance, headlights flickered once and then were gone. The wind whispered through the trees, and for a moment it almost sounded like a man exhaling. Relieved. End of Season 1, The Highway Phantom. The ghost that left tire tracks. Subscribe to Enter the Crime for weekly documentaries on unsolved cases, mysterious disappearances, and criminal masterminds who changed history.